Hey, you're doom-scrolling in bed, half brain dead, when your cat hops onto your chest with all the grace of a bowling ball. Your lungs collapse, your dignity evaporates, and the cat just stares like, yeah, this is my bed now. Annoying. Absolutely. Evil. Not unless you count hairballs in your shoes as satanic. Now smash cut 700 years backward. Same cat, same glowing eyes in the dark. Except now, to your medieval ancestor, that wasn't a quirky roommate, it was the devil in fur. One unlucky meow, one suspicious glare, and suddenly, your bloodline is on trial for witchcraft. Your ancestor wasn't a hero. He was a dirt-smeared peasant with fleas for neighbors, a stomach growling louder than the church bells, and a prayer that gossip didn't get him killed. If he slipped, you'd never exist. The only reason you're here scrolling memes tonight is because somehow, against plague and paranoia, your family line didn't get wiped out. Cats almost didn't survive either. So how did humanity's best mousetrap get rebranded as a demon? Strap in. This gets ridiculous. The year is 1233. Europe is a dumpster fire of famine, filth, and fear. Science is a rumor. The Catholic Church is the loudspeaker system for the continent. Enter Pope Gregory IX, who drops a decree that would echo for centuries. Black cats are agents of Satan. His proof? They're sneaky, nocturnal, and their eyes glow like headlights from hell. To a modern brain, that sounds laughable. To a medieval one, it was gospel. Imagine you're a barefoot peasant, reeking of goat manure, terrified of damnation. A cat's eyes gleam at you from the shadows. You don't think pest control, you think Lucifer just sublet my barn. And you can't argue. Disagreeing with the church means a fast-track ticket to being kindling at the next bonfire. So, people obeyed. Cats were hunted, tortured, and burned by the thousands. Villages that once relied on them to keep rodent populations in check suddenly drowned in rats. Cat corpses piled high, while rats threw Europe's wildest rave. Fleas happily hitched rides, carrying Yersinia pestis, the bacterium behind bubonic plague. In trying to kill evil, people built the runway for the deadliest pandemic in history. Congrats, medieval Europe! You invented the first delete System 32 hack for your own civilization. And it gets worse. If cats weren't damned enough, folklore tied them to witches. Witches weren't just creepy women with herbs. They were the all-purpose explanation for every misfortune. Your cow dies? Witch. Your bread doesn't rise? Witch. Your kid sneezes twice? Definitely a witch. But witches never worked solo. They had familiars, spirit animals to help with curses. Cats, with their smug independence, were the perfect suspects. Soon, whispers claimed witches could become cats. Shape-shifting into a tabby, they supposedly snuck into barns at night, curdled milk, killed livestock, and hexed neighbors. Now drop yourself there. You're a mud-soaked villager with 8 kids, 7 teeth, and a goat that just croaked. You don't know about bacteria or nutrition, but you do know your neighbor owns a black cat. Mystery solved. Paranoia snowballed into spectacle. Courts hauled cats in as co-defendants. Picture a terrified feline dragged before a judge, accused of sorcery. Sentencing? Firewood. Cats burned alive beside their owners while crowds cheered. This is the same era that couldn't manage indoor plumbing, but sure, let's invent courtroom procedures for animals. Medieval priorities. Soap? Nah. Cross-examining a house cat? Absolutely. And just as superstition reached fever pitch, the plague arrived to double down. 1347. Ships roll into Europe carrying stowaways. Rats loaded with fleas. Fleas loaded with plague. Within years, entire towns collapse. Bell towers toll endlessly. Carts creak with stacked bodies, and the smell of death becomes Europe's signature perfume. The Black Death kills up to 200 million people, half the continent. To this day, it remains one of humanity's worst self-owns. Now imagine you're living it. Every day, another neighbor coughs blood. Streets are lined with corpses. You look for answers. Priests scream that it's God's wrath. Neighbors mutter about witches. And of course, cats get blamed again. But irony check. In villages where cats survived, the death toll was lower. Rodents stayed in check. Fleas spread slower. In places where mobs exterminated them, rats had VIP access. The very animal that could have helped save Europe was the one people tried hardest to erase. Medieval logic in action. Cats are evil. Kill cats, more rats. Plague explodes. Millions dead. That's not divine punishment. That's a Continental Darwin Award. And yet, even after the bodies piled high, the superstition stuck. Cats became something more than animals. They became cultural villains. Humans love easy symbols. In the medieval brain, the math went like this. Black, we got evil. Night, we go danger. Independence, we go arrogance. Put that together, and cats were the ultimate walking red flag. They didn't wag tails or grovel like dogs. They strutted, slinked, and ignored humans with total confidence. To us, that's just cat behavior. To them, it was demonic arrogance. Picture the scene. You're in a candle-lit hovel, gossiping with neighbors. A black cat glides past, tail raised like it owns the dirt path. You think, cute? Your ancestor thinks, Beelzebub just made an entrance. Art reinforced the paranoia. Paintings showed witches cuddling cats. Folktales painted them as spies for the devil. Songs warned of their evil aura. Cats became medieval goths, aloof, mysterious, and too stylish for the world around them. And the branding campaign stuck. To this day, black cats get adopted less from shelters. People still mutter about bad luck if one crosses their path. Imagine hating an animal so much that your paranoia outlives your civilization by centuries. That's medieval marketing at its finest. The so-called villains were the secret heroes. Despite centuries of torch mobs and witch trials, cats endured. More than endured. They saved lives. Villages that kept cats, even in secret, saw fewer rats, fewer fleas, and fewer funerals. Cats silently patrolled barns and alleys, holding back the tide of plague while humans ranted about demons. Imagine yourself again. You're a peasant hiding a cat in your hayloft while neighbors accuse you of heresy. Outside, families collapse into plague pits. Inside, your household survives, thanks not to divine intervention, but to a purring exterminator doing its job. That one act of quiet defiance, keeping a cat alive, might be the only reason your family tree didn't snap in the 14th century. Cats weren't cursed. They were unpaid public health workers, risking persecution while saving more lives than all the medieval doctors combined. But ignorance has 9 lives. Even today, black cats carry stigma. That's how deep the smear campaign went. 700 years later, superstition still clings like fleas. And that's the dark punchline. Humanity nearly killed itself, not because of demons or magic, but because it couldn't tell the difference between plague and purring. So here you are, alive, spoiled, scrolling at 2 a.m. while your cat licks its paw with zero regard for your existence. You exist because your ancestors ignored mobs, kept their cats, and stumbled through pandemics just long enough to pass down their DNA. Cats weren't evil. Humans were catastrophically bad at science. Subscribe to Spoiled Wisdom, where we dig up history's dumbest disasters so you don't feel as bad about your own questionable decisions. And tell me this in the comments. If you lived in the Middle Ages, would you risk keeping a cat? Or would you be out there with the torch-wielding mob?